United States Congressman Jeff Fortenberry. Congressman, welcome to DTL, and glad to hear that you're safe after today.
Thank you, Coby. I appreciate the sentiments, and please let me say to the community as well, I've received texts from friends and others who are interested in knowing a little more detail, but also checking on me. I really appreciate it. I'm sorry. I was just going to give you a little description of what happened if you're interested.
Well, no, please do. But I do want to clarify. Your family was on this congressional retreat too, and they also are doing okay, right?
Everybody's fine. You worry. These are my younger children, so you worry a little bit about the impact on them in terms of the heaviness of the incident. But physically, they're fine because we witnessed a garbage truck being hit, and a man was killed, and several others seriously injured. That's what actually happened. We were on the Amtrak train going to this retreat. Retreats happen this time of year. Republicans and Democrats take a little time after the State of the Union to gather and discuss policy and options. And these, for us, are family events. And so I had my younger kids with me, but all of a sudden there was just a jarring noise and a jolt of the train at the same time. I thought it may have derailed, and then I thought maybe we hit something like a tree and it was caught underneath. But then it became evident that it was a garbage truck, but the back end of the truck had separated from the cab, and so garbage was strewn everywhere, and you could see the cab smoking some distance away from the actual back end of the truck. So it was really a very jarring, heavy tragedy, a reminder of how fragile life is. One moment you're having lighthearted conversation with friends and colleagues, the next moment this happens. So, but thank you for asking. Yes, we're fine. I appreciate it.
And so what happened after that? Did members of Congress, did you all get off of the train? Was there ever concern, about something happening to the train itself? I know congressional doctors, I guess, even tried to help the victim.
Yes, generally when there's a number of Congress members together, there are physicians with us as well as security. The doctors went out there immediately. But, what was really moving to me is that we also have a number of members of Congress who are doctors themselves. And so they went out there as well, probably about a half dozen, to try to help, including Brad Winstrip, who's a good friend of mine, congressman from Ohio, Iraq combat veteran, a trauma surgeon, who was the one who probably saved Steve Scalise's life on that baseball field that day when he was shot. So here you have a member of Congress using his traumatic injury skills in less than 6 months. But they were just really impressive. They just went out there without equipment and such to try to do what they can. And I could see in a bit of a distance them trying to resuscitate one individual. But apparently that gentleman died. And I don't know the condition of the other two.
Congressman, let's shift gears a little bit and talk about last night, President Trump giving his State of the Union speech. First of all, how about just your 30,000-foot view of what he said and how you think Congress will react to it?
Yeah, well, appreciate it. And obviously today I hope to talk a little more at length about that. So I'm sorry about the heaviness of this other incident, diverting us from a more substantive policy conversation with the time we have. But I did think it was interesting to me, the president's tone was quite serious, at least from my impression being in the chamber, almost reflective. And obviously I knew that he was probably going to tout some successes of the year, such as tax reform, and it helped in building entrepreneurial Main Street small business momentum again. The fact that ISIS has basically been both contained and almost wiped out due to the intensified efforts of our military in our air power, but also our military and consultative leadership roles in partnership with other countries, though, who are actually doing significant fighting. So that's an important shift in policy. And in touting some success as well with helping shift some of the policy procedures in the Veterans Department. I thought the most powerful line of the night, from my perspective, was the era of economic surrender is over. One of the reporters afterward told me that it wasn't exactly the quote.
Sorry about that.
Was written. Okay, that's what was written, but apparently the president said the era of economic surrender is totally over. He probably ad-libbed that line, but that sounds more like him. I also thought some of the personal stories were quite impactful. Really, the young couple who adopted the unborn child, very, very deeply moving. And then also when the gentleman whose name I think is Mr. Ho, who escaped from North Korea and had lost both limbs and had been tortured, held his crutches up high and just kept holding them. I don't know what that looked like from the viewer, from your point of view on the television, but in the chamber itself, it was just deeply, deeply moving and touching and really reflective of what America is about. And I thought the line the president had when he said, "The State of the Union is strong because our people are strong, and that we must be worthy of this leadership." Again, it wasn't so much laying out an agenda of what we're going to do, 1, 2, 3, 4, is about big visions of things that might not be realistic. It was more about affirming the deep sense that Americans have heart, have grit, have compassion. And that's what keeps us strong and united. So I thought those were good thematics.
Boy, I agree with you wholeheartedly. One thing that nobody seems to be talking about today, and I'm curious if there's a reason why, was he talked about one of his priorities being lowering the prices on prescription drugs. Why do you think that that's not getting much attention today?
Curious question. I picked up on that as well. And in fact, I noted that. I'm glad you said something. The injustice of high drug prices is what he said. And I absolutely agree with him. Now, the speech was generally light on health care because, again, we've got major problems in healthcare, and the initial policy solutions rolled out are hugely controversial, and we're problematic in many ways. But that was an important line, and he took it to the next step, and he said, we're going to change that. Now, details of that weren't forthcoming, but I think laying down that type of idea, which would be so beneficial to so many people, and basically put the companies on notice that we're going to dig underneath these policies that are driving this unreasonableness, this brokenness in the marketplace that doesn't have to exist. I thought that was very impactful.
Yeah, I did too. I mean, it's one of the few things that I wrote down, kind of like what you were saying earlier, that really impacted you. There were those 2, 3, 4 things. One thing that I thought was interesting, he was not afraid at all to talk about building the wall, which makes many happy, but he also was not afraid to talk about making sure that the dreamers stay here in the United States, which the people that he just made happy, now some of them he perhaps has made upset. Are we going to get to a point where both of those happen? Are we going to get to the point where the Republicans and Democrats come together and say, yes, we're going to build the wall, and yes, we're going to allow the dreamers to stay?
Good question and a hard question, but I think the conditions are ripening for there to be some type of compromise deal. And I think, frankly, honestly, most Americans, as am I, are sympathetic to the plight of young people who came here through no willful, illegal act of their own as children, were brought here as children, who have no home to go back to if they were expelled from the country. Most people are very sympathetic to their plight, but also want that to be coupled with the right type of policies so that this problem does not ever happen again. Mm-hmm. And those solutions include robust border security. Now, we've worked on this for a number of years, but that also includes enhanced physical barriers as well as more officers there and an interior enforcement policy that is very real and necessary changes to certain broken parts of the immigration system, such as the visa lottery system, which no longer makes sense in our time. If there can be a package that couples those things together, giving our people the assurance that that border is going to become much more secure, that laws will be enforced, and that certain changes, certain immigration programs that no longer make sense in this day and time are enacted, I think it creates the space, and the important space, to provide legal status for those young people who, again, came here through no willful act of criminal law, violation of criminal law on their own.
I want to ask you one more question about last night. I'll let you go because I know you're at this retreat that where they call it a retreat. I also know it's kind of a working retreat. But, Congressman, last night a lot of people are making a big deal that Democrats didn't stand up when he talked about border security. They didn't stand up when he talked about bonuses for Americans that companies are paying. They didn't stand up when he talked about low black unemployment. That there were many times they didn't stand and they thought they should have. Is that just normal and Republicans do the same thing, or did it seem like there was a lot more of that last night where people just didn't stand and refused to give him applause of any kind?
Well, I'll give you my perspective. I think we need to respect the institution of the presidency, no matter who's in office. You don't have to stand and affirm a policy that you don't believe in. But I do think there needs to be a sense of decorum in the institution that no matter who the people have selected, even if there's a significant disagreement, there's a certain respect for the office. And so I don't want to make a judgment on anybody else's intention, but I will tell you, I got a tweet right after the speech. A friend of mine right there in Lincoln was just really, really aggrieved by what he saw. For myself, I was trying to, again, focus on the parts of the speech, to listen carefully about what I thought was innovative, and to try to piece together the narrative thread. And again, it was a different type of speech in the sense that it did start laying out a laundry list of things that are possibilities. It had some specific policy initiatives, the bigger one being around the possibilities of an immigration deal, but also some key lines that help lay down a clear marker. And I think that one about the era of economic surrender being over was very powerful.
Congressman Fortenberry, great to catch up with you today. Thanks for your insights, and glad to hear everybody's doing all right.
Well, again, thank you for asking about us, and I want to thank the community for checking in with me and seeing if things are okay. We're doing fine. Thank you.
Congressman, have a good rest of the week. United States Congressman Jeff Fortenberry joining us live tonight here on Drive Time Lincoln. Running